Sweet.
Welcome up on deck. I am Jake Brown and here with Jeffrey Hinkle as well. And we are joined today with a very special guest, the play-by-play man for the Fredericksburg Nationals, Joey Zanaboni. Joey, welcome to the show.
Hey, y'all. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no problem. So as we were talking before the show started, you have become a viral sensation calling Fredericksburg Nationals games with your classic phrases that you will say for any big moment for these games. There's continually on Barstool and on John Boy Media, trending on Twitter, wherever. What is it like seeing your work being shared on social media?
It's awesome. It's amazing. For sure. I've done this for 8 years, and I think the biggest thing that I've always said is that I try to do the game for one individual person, not someone specific, but I try to do it as if I'm talking to one individual person. I've had a few experiences that have shown me what just even one listener, the kind of impact you can have on their lives by doing your best and trying to create an interesting and engaging product. With some of the exposure and things like that, it's extremely cool because I still feel like been able to reach people on a personal level. It's not really about the number of views or kind of where it's featured, but it's the fervor that individual people seem to feel for it. And that's really gratifying. It's something I'm really thankful for.
Awesome. So, you call A-ball baseball, and A-ball baseball is like completely different than like Major League Baseball in every sense of the word, really. What about minor league baseball makes it so special to you?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is that it never feels like any team is out of it. I think just in our last probably 8 games, we've rallied from 4-0 deficits twice to come up with a couple of wins that were pretty big for us. And I think in Major League Baseball, once they build a 4-run lead, it can be so difficult for the team to come back that the game actually becomes a little bit less exciting. My thesis is really pulled from Joseph Heller's novel, Catch-22, one of my favorite novels. There's a part in that book where 2 people are playing chess, and I believe it's Yossarian, the narrator, comments, the game had become so good as it had become bad. And that's kind of what I think about with Major League Baseball, where the players have never been better. The strategy, the analytics, the data points have never been sharper. Truly, it is the greatest baseball that's ever been played in the history of humanity. Yeah. And yet viewership is down a little bit, and people seem less engaged, as less part of the cultural zeitgeist, because I believe the game has become so good that it's become bad. And whether it's the community college level, junior college, NCAA Division II, Division I baseball, single A baseball, all of which I've done, one of the hallmarks of the game is that it really is a little bit more of that Sandlot feel, where you feel like anything can happen at any time. And that's just really the on-field stuff. Once you get to the off-field stuff, I'm living proof that there's still enough wackiness in minor league baseball to power your vehicle. And so I definitely enjoy that.
Gotcha. Jake, you got something?
Yeah, I do. So I was researching you over the past week or so, and I was really surprised that you don't have a broadcasting degree, but an English literature and language degree. What about language? Because you say you love language as much as baseball. What about language kind of intersects with baseball that makes it so special?
I think the language of baseball has essentially become the language of America. There's little phrases that we use all the time about coming up to at bats, scoring runs, things like that we use as metaphors for other things. And so I really do think that now, kind of where we are with baseball being, something that's pretty much taken for granted in America. The language has become language itself. And, I went along playing baseball until high school, and kind of felt like some of it started to intersect with things we were doing in English class, where I was writing about baseball and I was writing about my experiences with it. And I think something my junior year English teacher, Chuck Hussong, shout out Chuck Hussong, said to us, we were talking about the student literary magazine called Gadfly, and he was kind of excoriating us for not reading it. He said, how many people have read the issue? Nobody had read it. And this was the honors English class. So I think he was good to be disappointed. And he was kind of excoriating us. And he just said, he was talking about how there was an absurdist drawing in the magazine. And it was like different statues around the campus had been replaced by everyday objects. And he said, St. Ignatius was a flashlight. And then he kind of paused. He said, I don't think in the history of the English language, those words have ever been said. St. Ignatius was a flashlight. And so that's something I love about language, is you can do something that's never been done. And as far as the broadcast work has gone, I would say I've done this for 8 years. I'd say the first 4 years of my career, 3 or 4 years, it was essentially like paint by number, because you can always come up with another phrase to describe a ground ball that's already been used, or a fly ball, or a double play. And in the next 4 years of my career, I really made it my challenge to try to see if I could say something different each time, or most of the times, really just to keep it interesting for myself, and to see if I could take some of those more creative instincts that I had nurtured in high school and college and creative writing programs, and really make it my own.
Is that where all of your like creative phrases that you say come from, is trying to sound different than, just a sharp ground ball to right field base hit? Just more kind of robotic?
Oh, absolutely. I do think that baseball is just riddled with cliches, and as original as I try to be, I know I fall into them as well. That's the challenge, and that's the fun, is how can you generate something that's not been, I guess, said before, or not been emphasized before. And so, yeah, that's a really big part of, I guess, my goal.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and there's got to be a lot of fun and trying to find new phrases and stuff like that to describe a ground ball or a fly ball or a strikeout or whatever. But like, what's the most fun that you've had calling a minor league baseball game?
Most fun I've had calling a minor league baseball game. Oh boy, that's a good question. I mean, really just all of it. I would say that this season with Fredericksburg has been my most fun season that I've had. Just coming into the ballpark every day has been so fun. Part of it is because the team has been good, been right battling for the top of the division the whole year and things like that. So that definitely makes it easier. I will say one season that I really look back on extremely fondly was the summer of 2018. I was working with an independent baseball team in the Dallas area called the Texas Airhawks. And it was actually my third year working with the team. And there was a partnership in that third year between our team and the Chinese national baseball team. And basically two-thirds of our roster became the team who had played at the World Baseball Classic, and at the time were trying to qualify for the Olympics from the People's Republic of China. And it was like the most fun thing ever. I just remember there was a guy, Song Yun Chi, who was our center fielder. He was quoted in a magazine in Texas, and he said, when I walked into the locker room and saw that Airhawks jersey in my locker, I thought, this is the proudest moment of my life. And we had finished in last place the first 2 years that I had been there, either last place or second to last place. And I had seen so many players come through and said, boy, I'm with the Airhawks now. It's the bottom, going down to this is the bare bottom right here. So it was extremely refreshing. We went 25-75. So it was a rough year on the field, but just the innocence that they brought and some of the lessons that we learned about just everything, just, cultural interaction and baseball and language as well, just communicating with people from China and vice versa, them communicating with us. Google Translate got quite a bit of work that summer. It just made it feel like there was something really elemental about it. And I do kind of trace some of the stuff that I do now, some of the wackier stuff. I was doing that at the time, but really kind of leaning into it, I think back to that because I found out about midway through the summer that because of government censorship, they actually were not able to watch the games in China. We had thought there was, we thought there was going to be. Now, granted, baseball is not an extremely popular sport in mainland China. Right. But we thought there would be kind of a listening and viewing audience, but it was actually being stymied by the government censors, and it kind of made you feel a little bit like Bob Uecker in Major League when he says, "Hey, nobody's listening anyway." Well, that was actually an example of, "Hey, nobody is listening." We had a very much thinned out kind of broadcast, but it made me realize and kind of reemphasize the importance of broadcasting for one individual person. And it was extremely well received, I'll say, by the people from China who did watch it. They did enjoy it.
Gotcha. So I mean, going back to like nobody's listening, like have you ever just sat down in the booth like you are right now, kind of just sitting at the ballpark and just like reminisced of some calls that you've made or stuff like that while nobody's there at the stadium or few people are there?
Do I look back on the calls?
Yeah.
I mean, not much, just every day. I mean,
trying to find the good ones to clip on your Instagram.
Yeah. There's a lot that have been lost to just archives. They're still out there, but I haven't gone back and done it. And again, it's almost like at the start of my career, I think there were a lot of kind of crazy phrases and stuff, but I didn't want to put them on social media. I just didn't really feel like it wasn't anything like, oh, I'm afraid to or anything like that. But it was just like, why? I just felt like, why should I do it? And there was actually that same year, right before that summer with the team from China, that was actually when I kind of started to clip them because I was doing a tournament at the University of West Florida. And I remember I was just kind of sitting in the booth. At the time, I think I was 25, and there were a lot of kids who were like 18 to 22, college kids, and they were all just like laughing at everything I was saying. I mean, maybe not everything, but enough. So I kind of went back and I put together a little video of them, and it kind of got some traction. It just showed me that, hey, people are kind of interested in this outside of just kind of your normal baseball highlights stuff. But oh yeah, I mean, I go back, I watch them, I listen to them, and I laugh. I'll say that the ones that I get really excited about are just like, they come to me before the game, and they come to me at some point during the game, and I'll find myself laughing. So if I do one of those, I'll go back and I usually get another genuine laugh out of it. Say, okay, I said it. That's, that was out there.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's such a unique way to call a baseball game. It's something that it's a different broadcast really every day. It's like, for some play-by-play guys or some, pundit on Fox, it's like, it's the same minutia every day. It's like a sharp ground ball into right field, a ground out to the second baseman. But you're out here saying some really wacky, quirky, funny phrases to describe the same minutia that these people are just, throwing by the wayside.
Yeah. And my advice to, I guess, anybody who's in college with broadcasting, I look back on majoring in literature and not really having any experience in broadcasting until I got out of college as kind of an advantage, because I do feel like it's easy to burn out. And if you start when you're 18 years old and you go through, say, 4 years of college, and you're doing a lot of it and maybe doing it in a way that you're just sort of taught to do it, I do think that there could be some danger there. Not for everybody. There's a lot of people who just, it's what they want to do. They enjoy it the same way every time. But just having that emphasis on creativity and feeling like you can do what you want to do, the individual power and the individual thrill of it is really important to grasp onto. Because I just feel like I've seen so many people get into their mid-20s or their late 20s, and then it's just like, why should I keep going with this? It's a tough business. I mean, there's not a ton of opportunities on the professional side. It's not always extremely well paid and things like that. And so people kind of go do something else. They drop out of it. They go do something else. And I just think that I really don't see myself as being like, oh, one in a million, nobody else could come up with this and do it. It's just that I am doing it. You know what I mean? I think that more people could do it than are doing it right now. And it doesn't have to be, I've always just had kind of an affinity for the absurd and stuff like that. It doesn't have to be funny. It's just having that more individualistic sort of voice and take on it is something that I think will become more prominent here in the next years and decades.
Yeah.
So when I was preparing for this, I was scrolling through your Instagram, just looking at clips of your calls, and I made a top 5.
Mm-hmm.
So number 5 is burning up like a Harry Potter box set at an anti-witchcraft rally.
Yeah.
Number 4 is back when you were doing hockey, and it was when you were reciting Fancy Like. I just thought that was funny. Number 3 is got me dancing like a Spice Girls cover band in an earthquake simulation. Number 2 is line drive hitting the grass like Snoop Dogg riding a John Deere. I know you did that recently. And I got my Strasburg jersey on right now, so I had to put number 1, freezing him like pay raises at a poorly run cryogenics laboratory. How do you think of these phrases, and do you ever think of them like mid-game or before a game and write them down before you say them on air?
Yeah, it's a great top 5. It's a really great top 5. I'd have to go back sometime and try to do my own top 5. I've kind of lost track of them, to be honest with you. I've forgotten about a lot of them. Yeah. I would say I read a lot. That's kind of my key with coming up with these things, is I try to wake up and read, preferably a novel, but sometimes a magazine. I'm reading Breakfast at Tiffany's right now by Truman Capote, whether it's the New Yorker or the Economist. I mean, fiction, nonfiction, something. And I really try to read off the phone too. It's been a huge point of emphasis. I just think you'll be amazed by the things your brain can come up with when you put something into it and then you just go about your day. And when you're willing to embrace kind of that just weird fusion of your brain putting 2 unlike things together, that's really my key, I guess. And so that's a big thing. I do write stuff down. Kind of my rule is it has to make me laugh if I write it down. And so there is an element as well, though, of just having that notebook that nobody sees. I think that's a huge thing as well, is you should have stuff that you're writing down that doesn't make any sense at all. I believe that was Kurt Vonnegut's advice, very famously, when he was about 85 years old. There was a school class, wrote some letters to famous authors. He was the only one who responded, and he said, right now, literally right this second, write a 6-line poem that makes no sense, then tear it up and throw it in the trash, and you'll have more fulfillment today than you've had any other day. And I think that's 100% true. Sometimes they come to me during the game and I might jot them down in the scorebook or something like that, because you want to have it ready, you want to have it syntactically ready, and you want to have you want to have every word like you want it. I've learned that even just one little phrase or one little word can completely change the meaning of something. So yeah, you want to have it kind of figured out. But some of them do come to me in the moment. I think the best ones do kind of come to me in the moment. That Harry Potter one, that anti-witchcraft thing. I don't know what I was thinking there, but hey, I'm a big Harry Potter fan. So I put a lot of time into that through the years. But yeah, it's a little bit about trusting yourself and just making the decision to go forward confidently with whatever you do and knowing when to drop them in. I think that's just the process. That's what I've been working on for 8 years. What I'll be working on for another 8 years is just knowing the right moment to drop them in and make it seem like it's really the thing that is the only thing for you. I just feel like you can always tell when someone's mind is not really in it or they're not really into the game. If you can really be in the moment, that's when you get into that area of, I'm not really sure it matters what you say. It's more just how you say it. And when you let yourself get carried away, I think that's really what people are looking for.
Yeah. And going back to what you were saying about that Kurt Vonnegut, Kurt Vonnegut thing, that's much like his novel, the Fahrenheit 451. It's burn everything and we will teach you the new way, sort of thing. It's like burn everything that you've got down and that you've learned from your broadcasting school and just let me show you the new way.
I gotta be an English major here. Actually, I think that was Ray Bradbury on
I'm sorry, yeah.
But point taken.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
Don't burn your books now. Don't burn your books. That's all I'll say about that.
Don't burn your books. But still, it's almost like you are burning everything that broadcasters have done for years and years and years, and you are the new way to call a baseball game. It's really interesting to listen to you call a game, just because you say some stuff like, the Snoop Dogg one with the John Deere. It's like I would have never thought to put those two things together, and it's like, I don't know, man. It's amazing to hear you call a baseball game.
Shout out Snoop Dogg and the wonderful world of grass. What can I say? I'll just say that I know what my influences have been. Growing up in St. Louis, I was a huge fan of Ken Wilson. Was really my original inspiration. He was the broadcaster for the St. Louis Blues, and he did quite a bit of baseball. I think even as recently as about 10 years ago, he was broadcasting with the Seattle Mariners. And Mike Shannon as well, who's a longtime radio broadcaster for the Cardinals and did that for 50 plus years, just retired last season, end of last season. So, I really, as I think Einstein said, you stand on the shoulders of giants. I really know that. And things of that nature are really special to me, those experiences when you first kind of learn about sports broadcasting. But yeah, it goes back to, again, not having an education in broadcast journalism. Yeah, it ended up being a big advantage. It was a disadvantage, I think, at the start of my career because it was harder to open doors and it was a little bit harder to kind of get your foot in. But I just never had to.
Sorry about that. We got cut off because Zoom hit the 40-minute mark. But we're back.
It's the first time it's ever happened. It's the first time it's ever happened to me. Can't believe it. Yeah, I don't Zoom as much as you'd think. Well, yeah.
We're back here with Fredericksburg Nationals play-by-play man Joey Zanaboni, and
just keep going.
Yeah,
I know you were on a roll when it.
You were on a roll.
Yeah.
You were in the zone.
Well, we were just talking about the role of education and things like that, and being a teacher as well. I mean, I've emphasized education as much as I've emphasized anything in my life. Specifically with broadcasting, though, I do think that at times it can it can be a little bit of a hamper to people, again, because I think it kind of can play into burnout a little bit. And just as it is in any other field, whether you're talking about art or you're talking about journalism, things like that, college can be as much a training ground as anything else. And you can get inculcated with ideas, even brainwashed by ideas in college. And so I just think that that's an advantage I've had. And I also think that doing a lot of research, I am a big fan of baseball history. I just don't know that baseball broadcasting is as dyed in the wool as people think. The radio obviously came to prominence in World War One. First baseball broadcasting was done in the 1920s. What a lot of people don't know is that in the 1930s, baseball was actually banned on the radio in the biggest market in the world, which was New York. The Giants, the Dodgers, the Yankees had all come together to basically say we're not gonna broadcast any games on the radio because we want to make sure people come to the stadium. And then, especially after World War II, that was pretty much abandoned. They leaned heavily into the radio, and you have the rise of the Red Barbers, the Vin Scoleys, and things like that, people like that, to national prominence. But when you talk about an art form, you're talking about an art form that's really only about 70 years old. If you say, okay, 1950s when Vin Scully began his career, I just think there's a little bit too much reflexivity where it's just like, well, this is how it was done. Well, when Vin Scully and Red Barber were doing it in the 50s, the radio was a vehicle of information sharing. It was literally telling people what was happening across the world. And today we live in a society where the problem is not a lack of information, it's the overwhelming amount of information. Mm-hmm. It's people trying to escape this nexus of data and analytics that's become the most prominent element of most of our lives. I mean, whether you're talking about baseball and you're talking about sabermetrics and you're talking about stuff like that, or you're talking about corporo speak just becoming the norm in everyday conversation, it's a danger to the spirit of society. And I just think that eventually there was going to be some sort of counter to that, I guess, is what I would say. And I guess that people have kind of latched on to this for whatever reason as kind of being counter to that. And I think that that's part of what explains maybe why it's been popular and gone viral.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, going off of the whole the whole data analytics and kind of too much information in one baseball game. Fun fact, actually, Sabres headquarters is in the same school that Jake and I go to. So sabermetrics is literally ingrained into the broadcast, the journalism department at Cronkite.
Yeah. And hey, I like sabermetrics. I really do. In fact, I remember when I was in probably 7th or 8th grade giving a speech on Moneyball, the book by Michael Lewis. Mm-hmm. And it was really, at the time, though, it was almost like under the radar. And it was like, oh, this is kind of the quirky thing that the poor teams do, like the A's, to stay competitive. But in the 20 years since then, I mean, it's become the dominant strain. And right. I don't think there's anything wrong with sabermetrics. I don't see anything wrong with analytics. And we talk about analytics. We talk about different numbers and stuff on our broadcast. What I'll say, though, is that the implicit promise of analytics was that it would make baseball more civilized. It would take the game from a bunch of tobacco spitting, club wielding Neanderthals to something almost futuristic, and it would make the game more palatable and more acceptable to people. Now you look at what's actually happened, though, is that more people have withdrawn from baseball, and it has less of a cultural cachet now than 20 years ago, because there's almost a litmus test for being a baseball fan. Oh, you're not a real baseball fan unless you know what Mike Trout's WAR is.
Yeah.
You're not a real baseball fan unless you can say all of these sort of advanced numbers. And in 2019, when Brandon Taubman very shamefully confronted a reporter in the Astros locker room in an almost violent manner,
Mm-hmm.
I think it was an indication that instead of making baseball more civilized, what these numbers have done, what these analytics have done, actually created something maybe even worse.
Yeah.
We've created a different sort of monster. And I just think that people understand that, whether they can articulate it or not, they understand the hypocritical center of the promise that data and analytics and things would make all aspects of our lives better, all aspects of our lives easier. And I just think it's part of a greater trend in society. Just thinking about when I was a kid, hey, you got to go to Blockbuster. You got to go and rent a movie from Blockbuster. Okay, now it's you get a DVD in the mail from Netflix, and now it's you just streaming, and you can just stream all day. The promise of endless convenience has actually made us a little bit more suspicious of each other, a little bit angrier toward each other, a little bit more contentious, because we don't really have to go out person to person and just chop it up together and just enjoy each other's company. There's a great documentary on Netflix, ironically enough, called The Last Blockbuster, that kind of gets into some of these themes. And it's just, again, I didn't go to Blockbuster and have hour-long, maybe some people did. I didn't go there and have hour-long personal conversations with people. But even just having those small experiences of 3 to 5 minutes talking to somebody about movies, it gave you that sense of community. And when you have this endlessly convenient society that's built on data and built on a relationship to computers and things, I think that that's at the heart of what some of these societal issues are. And I just think that there's something that's kind of dangerous about it. And I think that it's filtered into baseball. And I think that it's just there's re-engaging with the personal touch of baseball as truly the American experience is kind of the way to put it back in the cultural stream, the cultural mainstream more, and to re-engage people with popularity. But I don't know that it's going to happen, because I don't know that I don't know that it's to the advantage of everybody to give up kind of the edge that this analytics world gives you.
Gotcha.
So Joey, this is who just joined. This is Jack Bartlett. He is also one of our co-hosts. He is also from Missouri. So
oh yeah,
so Kansas City instead of St. Louis. But
what part of Kansas City?
I grew up in Brookside.
Really? I went to Rockhurst.
Okay, nice.
Rockhurst View, yeah.
I went to Pembroke.
Oh yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's great.
Jack, you got a question?
Yeah, I believe it was in the article written by the Washington Post saying that one of your biggest influences was Kay Ryan, and I was just interested how you found his work and what was so inspiring about what he wrote that he influenced you.
Yeah, Kay Ryan, she is really a huge influence on me. She was the Poet Laureate 2008 through 2010. Believe she lives out in the San Francisco area. She's from the West Coast. And Kay actually, just right by Brookside, came to Rockhurst University when I was a sophomore in 2010. So I think she had just finished her 10 years the Poet Laureate. And basically, I had a chance to go to a reading, and right before that, kind of a meet and greet, just like a lunch with her. And I was blown away. I just like hearing her read the poems out loud was part of it, but just like conversationally, it might sound kind of maybe it makes me sound kind of arrogant in retrospect because I was only about 19 years old, but I remember just walking out and I said, boy, that's the first person I've ever met in my life who's better at wordplay than I am. Just what she was doing what she was doing and what she continues to do, I believe she still writes, is it just had depth. It wasn't even like puns. There was just like meaning in sort of the crossing of these ideas, the crossing of these phrases that she used. She has a technique that she calls recombinant rhyme as well, which is kind of like, it's just like it's almost like a slightly off, like rhyming, like you rhyme the middle of the word with like the end of the word, and it sort of matches up through these lines. She has a poem about Atlas that really stuck out to me. And yeah, it just showed me that there was something more than just wordplay as like getting laughs. There was a way of injecting like a deeper meaning. And just like the crispness of it. She doesn't really write like, 5-page poems. She writes these little poems, and they kind of just stick with you. You're not sure why. And some about that just made me feel like, one, inspired, and two, like, I've really got to keep working. She had an interesting story about, as many poets do, just a long time just trying to kind of break through and get published and really find her voice. And it was just a really inspiring experience. I really think that was one of those things that it's just the beauty of education. It's just the beauty of, putting yourself out there and trying to do some extracurricular stuff. And I just am so thankful to have met her.
Yeah. Jake, you got something?
Yeah. So before you joined the broadcast team of the Fredericksburg Gnats, you were, as you said, you were a teacher. What was it like transitioning from broadcast booth to being a teacher and then back into the broadcast booth?
Yeah, I started teaching a few years ago as a long-term sub, and also as a regular teacher. I taught a computer class, elementary school, this last winter. And for me, that's really meaningful work. We don't talk about sports too much. Don't talk about, baseball or anything like that too much. It's really just fulfilling because it feels like I can pass on something just a little bit more firmly, I guess, than just sort of comments about sports or even about language or something like that. Just transmitting ideas and trying to build character and stuff like that. But I learn a lot from the kids. Funny enough, when I got the message from Fredericksburg about maybe working together, I was actually teaching in a kindergarten classroom, and just like listening throughout the year to the kindergartners talk, just the expressive nature of it, the spontaneous nature of it, and kind of the meaning that you can take out of that, even though they don't always know, what they're talking about, I guess. It was really inspiring. And so that's something that I do in the winter. And I simultaneously, I broadcast hockey and indoor soccer and stuff. And so I'm always kind of in the booth and doing that stuff. But as far as a day job goes, it's really, really meaningful. And it gives me a lot of fresh ideas about, basically, I would say, just language, but also just about, what are people talking about? What are kids talking about? I don't think I would have really known what the gritty was if I didn't. I know that's kind of embarrassing, but I probably wouldn't have known it if I wasn't teaching. Stuff like that. It just keeps you kind of current, and it keeps you understanding how ideas are formed and things like that. And it teaches you a lot about keeping people's attention and keeping people engaged.
Now, especially teaching kindergarten, you gotta keep those kids like on it at all times, or else they're gone for an hour and a half just playing with a crane in the corner.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's probably it was probably a culture shock to go back to broadcasting, but I could see how that could very well intertwine and trying to keep people like entertained and engaged.
Yeah. It's a little bit different, but there's a lot of stuff that is the same. Just kind of just making people pay attention is really at the heart of both, and I think they kind of feed into each other.
Gotcha. So some rapid fire questions from me. What is your favorite minor league baseball team name?
Fred Nats.
Fred Nats.
Fred
Love
Nats.
It. Love it. Do you have any pregame or postgame traditions?
Yeah, I'm a big runner. So I run 2 miles every morning when I wake up. So before I come to the stadium, and then I probably run another 1 or 2 miles before the game. If it's a 7:00 game, I try to go out there about 3:00. I run, and then I actually most of the time I'll take off my shoes. I go to a grassy area. I take off my shoes and socks, and I walk around in the grass, and then I try to do a little, I guess, meditation. So that's some grounding, which is just like when you put your hands or your feet like literally on the ground. And then I try to do about a 50 breath meditation to just kind of clear the mind.
Gotcha. Is there any like snacks or anything that you have in the game, mid-game, pre-game, post-game, anything like that? We're big food guys on this show.
I drink a lot of coffee, and I try to take whatever the meal is. We always have a restaurant partner, so there's always kind of a buffet meal, and I try to take just a plate of whatever it is. I think that's another big thing, is probably my biggest piece of advice to anybody trying to become a minor league baseball broadcaster or a professional broadcaster. Make sure you eat during the game, because you start to get hungry, and once you get hungry, that always comes out in your voice.
How do you take your coffee? Black or with cream and sugar?
I've learned to love myself a little bit more, so now I drink cream, but I used to just drink black.
Gotcha. I got a follow-up question to the food question. What is your go-to restaurant in the Fredericksburg area?
Oh, Kebab Corner.
I'm a DC guy, so it's.
Well, come on down to Fredericksburg for a game. If you're just in DC, make sure you get on out here. It's really only about a 45-minute drive, and we got a place about a mile from the stadium. It's called Kebab Corner. It's just amazing. I don't know. I love Middle Eastern food. I love Mediterranean food and stuff like that. So I go over there and I'll get basically roast goat or roast lamb, chickpea, long grain rice, naan. Probably been over there twice. I was over there on the 4th of July. Probably been over there twice in the last week. So yeah, it's Kebab Corner, Central Park, Silver Parkway, Fredericksburg. Shout out KC.
You a big shawarma guy?
I love that stuff. I really am like, if I go to a restaurant once, it doesn't even matter what it is. If I like it the first time, I pretty much just keep going back there until I move away. And I happened to go there just like off the bat, like a week after I got here, and I've never stopped going.
I'm the exact same way. If there's a restaurant, even if it's just like a chain, I will go. If I ever like feeling I don't know what to eat, it's like, oh, I'll just go to Old Reliable.
Got to. Oh, you
got to. What's your favorite major league player that's been on a minor league rehab that you've been able to call?
Steven Strasburg. Honestly, he's the only one. So started at the top. He's the only one I think that's ever been to the major leagues. I was with the Johnson City Cardinals, so Appalachian League in 2019, and then this is really my second affiliated stuff. So I haven't had a ton of opportunities in terms of the major leagues. I really think in the Appalachian League, I think there was one other team. I can't remember who it was. They had a major leaguer who had briefly played in MLB, and he was rehabbing. He came down, but I mean that was the rookie level, and I think that usually it's single A, double A, triple A where you're going to go, and just with the geographic convenience here of Fredericksburg, I think it just kind of made sense for the Nats to have Strasburg pitch here a couple times. And I was really thankful. I was actually at the Big 12 tournament, the ESPN broadcast of the Big 12 tournament when Strasburg, he made his first rehab start And he actually gave up a few runs and kind of struggled. It was his first time he pitched in like 2 years. And then I finished on Saturday, and I got on a plane. I made the plane by like 5 minutes, and I flew back and got back to Fredericksburg at like 3 a.m. and came over here for a 1 o'clock game. And that was the second one. So I was so thankful to have gotten back for it. He did an amazing job. I think he only faced one over the minimum in 5, and it was really cool.
Yeah.
That was
Got a bright future.
That was the same.
No doubt.
The pyrogenics laboratory call, I believe.
Yeah, yeah. No doubt
Jack,
about
you got
that.
something? Jack, you got something?
I was just wondering if you had, obviously you've been very creative with your commentary. I was just wondering if you had like a favorite call or a favorite catchphrase other than cock it, lock it, and restock it.
Close enough.
There's no
I
aim.
would say, and I gotta leave you guys to this one. We got a little staff meeting here, but I'll say this: my favorite moment in my sports broadcasting career, or really, I won't even say it's favorite, but I'll say the moment that I'm most proud of was May 2016. I was with the Texas Airhogs independent team, and we had a preseason game. It was our first preseason game. And our starter, Derek Callahan, was supposed to go 2 innings. And he, with 2 outs in the second inning, threw a fastball. And the guy hit it up the middle about 108 miles per hour. And it hit him right above the eye. And he collapsed on the field. He went down and basically was blacked out on the field. And before the game, I had checked our little software program, Mixlr, mixlr.com. And I had seen that there were 46 people listening, which, hey, listen, for a lot of nights I would kill for 46 people, you know. But at the time, what my mentality was just like, hey, it's 46 people. It's not a ton of people. But one of the things that I saw, people could make a username. And I saw there was somebody named P. Callahan that was listening that night. And when he went down, it hit me pretty squarely that I could be announcing the end of their son or their grandson's life. Most of your listeners are family and friends, and it was really that serious. It sounded the same going off his face as it did coming off the bat. And, you know, I really did not try to do anything special. I did not try to do anything that was particularly out there. I just said what I saw and just tried to keep rolling and give updates. And after about a half hour, he was able to get up onto his feet and walk off the field under his own power. And I just remember exhaling just this sigh of relief and just saying, he's going to be okay. He's going to be all right. And I cried after that game. I almost cried, you know, during the broadcast, but I cried after the game. It was 2.5 months. He went back to the Seattle area where he was from, and he had a couple of surgeries. He had a plate put in his face. And about 2.5 months later, he got on a bus. We were about 15, 20 games out of the division. So, you know, there was no playoff race for us. We were not needing a pitcher or anything like that. And he got on the bus in Dallas, and we went to Joplin, Missouri to play the Joplin Blasters. And on the pregame show, he told me my mom really appreciated the announcing that night. And it was like this really, I mean, it was emotional to hear that. And then he came out of the bullpen about halfway through the game. 3 1/3, he set down 10 in a row. And to me, that's still the most courageous thing I've ever seen in a player, most courageous thing I've ever seen at a ballpark. And so I guess what I would say is that I have different one-liners through the years that really make me smile or make me laugh. But to me, that really is the moment that I'm most proud of, is just keeping it together enough to provide some comfort to a family that was listening a couple thousand miles away on an internet only independent baseball broadcast, just to provide some tiny level of update and comfort, to me is what I'm most proud of.
Awesome. That's always so tough too. It's you know the home run calls, you just never know what to say in those type of moments. But hey, I'm glad you got through it, and I'm glad that he's okay. And I'm glad that you stopped by the show, man. Thank you so much for stopping in.
Absolutely.
Keep being awesome. keep doing exactly what you're doing. It's amazing work, man.
Absolutely. Well, thank you guys. I really appreciate it, and have me on again anytime.
For sure,
no
for sure.
problem. It's great
Have
talking.
fun
All
at that
right,
staff
y'all.
meeting, man.
See y'all. You have a great
See you later.
day.
Go Fred
Thank you.
Nats.
Go Fred Nats.